the Rise Up Sea Red podcast, all about the Arizona Cardinals and the NFL, featuring insider and outsider perspectives. Enjoy the best hour of Cardinals talk on the web. Now here are your hosts, Jess Root and Seth Cox.
Hello, Arizona Cardinals fans, and welcome to the latest edition of the Rise Up Sea Red podcast, the best of Cardinals talk on the web. And it's episode 406. This is Jess Root from CardsWire.com, the USA Today NFL Wire site. We have a special guest with us on episode 406, entering free agency, right tackle for the Arizona Cardinals for the last 3 years. Entering his 12th NFL season is Kelvin Beachum. He's been making the rounds. He was on the radio on Wednesday talking about a trip that he's taking. He's going to be heading out to Zambia to do some great work, and he's calling for help from us, the fans. Kelvin, through World Vision, you yourself have funded a pair of clean water wells, and you are now asking for a help from the community for a third. Tell us how did you come across this particular cause? Because we know, Kelvin, that you are all over the place when it comes to community work. The digital divide, STEM research, reading. You do so much work, and if the fans have not heard this, is that the NFLPA Community MVP winner 5 times. No one else has been honored that many times. That's impressive. Aside from the stuff that you've done on the field as a player for more than a decade, what led you to particularly clean water wells in Zambia in particular?
Yeah, the thing is, I went to Honduras a couple years ago just to go and see World Vision's work on the global scale, on the global front, and was convicted around just the conversation around water. Here in America, I've always talked about food insecurity and access to equitable education, especially within the STEAM field. So you can't really get to the conversation around hunger on a global scale because you are dealing with the conversation around water and access to clean water. So for me, before I can actually go and do the things I've done here domestically around hunger, I have to address the first problem, which is a basic human need, which is what so many people across the world struggle with. And specifically in Zambia, they have 800 kids that are dying of diarrhea and malnutrition just because of access to water. So not only wanted to talk about the problem, but how can I be a part of the solution?
So so we've got, you're heading out, like you went to the Suns game last night. You have, I believe, it's your daughter's birthday tomorrow or Saturday?
Yeah, it's Saturday, the 11th.
And then you are off to Africa with the family.
Yeah. Well, just me and my wife.
All right.
Leaving that night.
Yeah, that's quite the trip, and right there on the edge of free agency. As I was looking at, because there's a website through worldvisions.org /Beachum, right, isn't it? I think I accessed it through just last name Beachum. And just in the last 48 hours, the amount that has been raised has doubled. Almost doubled, and you are at right now 80% of the goal of $15,000 to raise for that clean water well. What inspired you? So you did the 2 on your own. What is it this time? So what's different this time about asking for the community help, which is, by the way, a fantastic thing because a lot of us wouldn't know how to help with something like this unless we ran across it. And a lot of times, like TV ads or radio ads, we kind of ignore. But when an individual like yourself, a name we know who we've watched play football on the field, what was the difference this time of what inspired you to say, hey, let's put this out public?
Yeah, I think, the ability to be able to garner the support from fans. There's so many fans that tell me, hey, anytime you do something in the community, let me know. If there's anything I can do to help, if I can ever volunteer, or if I can ever give to things that you're doing, let me know. So I just said, all right. They said, let them know. So it's a good time to do it, And this has been the first time that I've really done like this matching. I've done matching grants before, but something to this level, this significant. I've never done anything like this. So to be able to experiment and to be able to garner the support from fans, I signed a lot of autographs. So hopefully I've got a lot of tweets to help kind of push the message forward. So, it's been reciprocal. When you give to the fans and, we're paid to be entertainers, but when you take the time out to do things that are in the community that are affecting families on a day-to-day basis and having, I call it that hand-to-hand combat, being right up, boots on the ground to be able to serve, it comes back. And I've been blessed to work in the community for a long time. I've been blessed to be able to be a part of some great things that have happened in the community, and it's great that the community has came behind me and supported me in this particular fashion.
With all the things that you've done off the field, how much of that is you seeking out opportunities to do it, and how many times has it been where an organization or a group has come to you asking for your help? Because, I mean, just from the cross, you've got the education equity. You're campaigning for digital access to lower income communities recently, getting minority youth to pursue STEM disciplines, things like that, and adding to that the hunger and clean water access. How much of that do you do researching things that you're coming up with, things that you want to do that you do on your own?
The thing is, it sounds like a lot, but it's really just two verticals. And I put everything into two buckets. Try to keep it simple. Offensive line. I use the KISS principle. Keep it simple. So it's hunger, access to nutritious food, and science, technology, engineering, and math. And within hunger, you can't talk about hunger unless you have water. Here in America, we have water, so that's the easy thing. We go right to hunger. Domestically, on the global scale, it's the conversation around water. But in those fields, people know that that's where I sit, and I don't deviate. There's nothing against domestic violence. That's just not what I'm called to do. It's nothing against making sure that we're saving endangered species or endangered animals. That's just not me. It's I have military people and military family members, but that's not or veterans. But that's not where I want to serve at. Where I want to serve at is those particular lanes, and I stay in those lanes. So most of it is a combination of me reaching out and me finding natural synergies. Who do I actually want to work with, and who wants to work with me? So it's a little bit of both. The people who want to work with me and the people that I want to work with, and we find a way to collaborate. And then what's great about it now is how do we do things together? How do I pull people together? The thing about sports is sports brings people together at the end of the day. And if I can find an organization that wants to do X and another organization that want to do X, how do we do this together? A couple of months ago, I did something with United Aviate and Microsoft. United Aviate is trying to get more pilots and more African-American pilots into the workforce. Microsoft wants to be able to educate more, African-American folks in general. All right, well, how do we do something together where both parties get what they want, and what I get is the ability to just bring people together? Again, as an offensive lineman, everything that we do is collaborative. So to be able to do that same thing within the community is what I enjoy the most.
Awesome. So, World Visions, I heard a little bit, and maybe the people who have listened also heard the interview that you had with Burns and Gambo yesterday on the radio here in Phoenix. But how did you come to World Visions in particular for this particular cause?
Yeah. So I was actually at the NFLPA, this had to be 2014, 2015, and was talking about the work that I was already doing in the community. And I actually mentioned to this guy, Dexter Santos, who kind of works on the Players Inc. side, which is the business side, the profit-generating side of the union, and just told him I wanted to do more globally. And he was like, Kelvin, here's an organization called World Vision. You should go spend some time with them. So me and my wife actually went down to Nashville. They've done a lot with kind of country singers down in Nashville. So we went down to Nashville and got some insight into what they did and what they did on the global scale. A couple years later, we went to Honduras. The pandemic happened in 2020. We were supposed to actually go to the continent. We didn't know where, but we were supposed to go to the continent in 2020, but things got derailed with COVID. And now we're here in 2023, finally been able to go back again. So it's been a journey since, I would say, like 2014, 2015, of having that conversation with some of the executives over at the NFLPA.
So Kelvin Beachum's cause that he's doing right now, he's headed to Zambia and needs our help to fund that third clean water well. You can access that. You can help out by going to worldvision.org/Beachum. If you can't remember that, you can go to kelvinbeachum.com. He's got a link there. You can go to his Twitter, Kelvin Beachum Jr., You can go to his Facebook, his Instagram, his LinkedIn, search Kelvin Beachum, social something. You will find a link to that place, and you will find a link to be able to donate to the cause and get them there. As of Thursday afternoon, they are 80% of the goal. Coming up next on the Rise Up Sea Red podcast, the best of Cardinals talk on the web, we return and talk to Kelvin about free agency and the NFL. That's coming up next, Rise Up Sea Red. Now, Kelvin, can I ask you a little bit about some football, especially as you're hitting free agency?
Go for it.
So,
Yeah, go for it.
I know you've probably answered a lot of these questions already. Free agency, you talked on the radio that you are. It feels like you are very open to what your next team is going to be. Free agency is a week away. You've done the work, and now you're waiting for the opportunity. In terms of the Cardinals, it sounds like that you're waiting to hit the market. Have there been talks of returning to Arizona for another season?
We've been in conversation, but the thing is I'm not in the business of just playing one more year, and I still think that I have a lot of tread left on the tires. But there's been conversations that have been had. I've talked with Monty, I've talked with JG, I've talked with the offensive line coach and the offensive line coach, and we already have some commonalities. But I want to continue playing football, and it would be ideal to play here and to stay here. But again, I also know the business. This is a new regime. This is new faces in the building. They want to be able to put their stamp of approval on things. I would love to be a part of the transition, but if that's not the case, I completely understand. And there's no hard feelings. The relationships will still stay intact. I'll still be able to talk to everybody within the building, just like I've done with every other team that I've ever played for and played with.
You've played the last 3 seasons, which I would think it would be fair to say you've been playing under market value for someone of your caliber of player and capability and status in the league. It sounds like. So when you hit free agency, if you have some priority, you talked about wanting to play on grass on the radio.
Yes, sir.
It sounds like you want to play on grass. You want ideally a multi-year deal, and to show that a team values you financially more than just a year-to-year deal.
That is ideal. Again, ideal. That's idealistic. What actually happens when you actually get a piece of paper and somebody starts negotiating, that's completely different. But ideally, want to be able to play on grass. I want to be able to continue playing for a substantial amount of years. And I want to continue to prove my love to the game. I love this game. I love everything that comes with it. And I love the process. And I think when you bundle those things together, that put you in a position to be successful, not only at this age, but successful in being able to teach the next generation how to do the same thing as well.
Moving forward, you're not quite at the point where you're thinking year to year. Do you have a goal in mind for how much longer you want to play?
If I can play another 4 or 5 years, man, I feel confident that I've done enough for the National Football League, and the National Football League has done enough for me. But until then, man, I have there's not one fabric of energy, not one iota that wants to say I'm ready to retire or ready to shut it down. And my family knows that, my wife knows that, my kids know that. It's a great place to be in when you still love the game even at this age and even at this point in my career.
When you came here, you said at one point that Coach Kugler was probably the only guy who could have convinced you to move from left tackle to right tackle. As you move forward, do you see yourself more right tackle now, or would you like to go back to the left side?
Man, what's interesting, and I ended up having to play left tackle against the San Francisco 49ers this year. And it was crazy. It felt good. I'm like, I missed this. You know how you haven't rode a bike in a long time, or you haven't been home in a long time. It just felt like old times. But at the end of the day, man, you get in where you can fit in. And I've been blessed where I have the ability to play both, and play both at a very high level. So if it's right tackle, it's right tackle. If it's left tackle, it's left tackle. But for me, it's about being able to start, being able to contribute, and being able to find a way to win games and being a part of an organization that really wants to win games and is putting things in place to do so.
Looking back on this last season, what an interesting year, to say the least. Yeah. I know I don't want to deal with the detail, but how did it affect you in particular? You had a relationship previously with Coach Kugler. which is one of the reasons why you ended up signing with the team. How was that as a player to have to adjust and to have that impact when he was dismissed late in the year without having – we don't want to deal with what happened, but how did that impact you in the room?
It impacted me quite a bit. You always want to think of the best in folks, and which I still do. It's interesting that there hasn't been any video that's come about with what's been, accused and what's been said. And it's just wild. Right before a game, the guy who brought you here is asked to leave, and you got to go play a football game on national television on Monday Night Football against one of the best defenses in the league, man. It's just never easy. And, some of the stuff that happened this year, man, you just can't make it up, to be honest with you. And we had just a lot of things that happened this year, last year, that it just really made you scratch your head, man. I don't think you could have took this script to Hollywood and they would have made a movie out of it, because it just seemed unreal, to be honest with you.
Well, yeah, that whole year, that's not the type of movie you want to watch, because that just got worse and worse and worse. It was like something every single month, starting with the playoff loss last year. From that to what was said about Kyler before the Super Bowl to the suspension to everything. Is that kind of what happened with late in the year? Was it just too much to overcome, and then things it felt like you guys never could get – it was sliding, and you never could get traction again?
We never could. To me, I said this morning on the radio show, we never could execute like we needed to. And, one of the reporters was like, "Kelvin, you telling me this whole year is about execution?" I would say yes, because nobody cares what's happening out the field. Nobody cares what's happening with your family. Nobody cares about the suspensions, the injuries. What matters is how you execute between the lines. Now, did we have a lot of external things that happened and occurred? Without question. Did we have a lot of stuff? I mean, we had a guy that, passed away from a wreck that was on the team briefly. We had, the stuff that was going on with D-Hop. We had the way the playoffs ended. And, it's just, it was a lot that happened in 2022 that had nothing to do with football. When you got to the football field, we didn't execute like we needed to as a team. It's a team game. It's not a one-person thing. It ain't Kyler's fault. It ain't Cliff's fault. It ain't nobody's fault. It's the team. And when you think about the team as a team, we didn't execute like we needed to, when we needed to win the games we needed to.
Have you ever been part of an offensive line that has been so hit by injuries? I mean, you were the only offensive starter to start every game. 4 out of the 5 starters ended up on injured reserve that were originally there. Other guys ended up on injured reserve. Have you ever been part of a line that was just so they couldn't stay together for whatever reason? Bad luck. It just couldn't keep the same unit together.
I don't know if it was to that extent, but I had a year in 2019, my last year in New York. We were beat up like that quite a bit, but not to this extent, where even the guys who were coming in and for depth getting hurt as well. And that just happens. Sometimes you get the injury done. That's just the nature of the game. But to answer your question, I've never been a part of anything like that, to be honest.
You talked a little bit about the experience on Hard Knocks on the radio. I want to go a little different direction, because I remember what you said before Hard Knocks happened, that you were you were on the record as saying you weren't particularly a big fan of that happening. And then, what was it, the first episode? It was all we got so much of you on the field, giving Leonard Floyd the business on the field. And after the experience, one, are you that talkative with the opponents every game? And two, did you come away after the experience with the same opinion as you did before, that you weren't thrilled about it? But what was your takeaway from it?
Yeah. To answer your question, man, I don't talk unless you want to talk. If you want to go there, we can go there. And, the thing is, I tell folks, that's how I got paid. I used to talk trash all the time. And when I was younger, I used to burn a lot of energy. I don't have that type of energy anymore. So I got to face myself when it comes to talking. But if we want to get to that point where you want to trash talk and you want to do some things that are dirty and not, there's a way in which to play the game. This is a violent way. It's a violent game.
Yes, absolutely.
But there's also respect. And when you start doing stuff that's disrespectful, then we can go there. And I don't mind going back to that dark place. So to answer that question, I don't mind going to that dark place when you want to take me there. Regarding my comments, man, the thing is it's something about a locker room and an offensive line room that are just sacred. You know, there's just things that happen in the building that the normal people wouldn't understand. People outside the building wouldn't understand the way in which we talk to each other, the way in which we talk, the way in which we joke, the way in which we, you know, push on one another, encourage one another. Like, that stuff is sacred. Those relationships and those bonds and those conversations and laughs and jokes that we're going to have when we're 60 and 70 years old. You know?
How many people have asked you about popcorn?
Well, to be honest with you, let me plug this right now. Harkins reached out to me, and I've actually been trying to find a way to get to Harkins Theater. So if you can actually give me an intro to somebody that runs corporate there at Harkins, man, that would be awesome. You know, a lot of people actually are one of the producers, Cortland, one of the producers for Hard Knocks. We were sitting down grabbing dinner, man, and he was like, man, I got to stop by and get you something. I got a present for you. He shows up with 2 bags of popcorn.
One thing that I thought was impressive is when JG was introduced as head coach, among the players that were there, you were there. A guy who's not under contract for 2023. Why was it important for you to be at that introductory press conference, even though you didn't know what your status of the future of the team is?
Well, the thing is, I'm actually still employed until they stop paying me.
I mean,
yes,
that's true.
So,
you were technically
I
under contract till next week.
But the way that I think about it, man, it's all about relationships. You never know what opportunities present themselves when you're willing to meet people where they are. I didn't know JG. I didn't know Monty. I didn't know the offensive line coach. Mr. Adams, Coach Adams. I don't know any of them. But I'm willing to go and reach out and say hello, introduce myself. And I don't know what's going to happen. But who's to say 5 years down the road, I'm still playing and you know, somebody on that staff. I remember when Kelvin came up and met me at the press conference. Like, you just never know how first impressions and how far first impressions will go. So I don't really put much stock into, you know, is that the right thing to do or wrong thing to do. I feel that it's about the relationship. And in the game of football, the world is very, very small, very small. So you just never know who's going to be coaching where, who's going to be the OC, who's going to be the offensive line coach, who's going to be the GM, who's going to be the head of pro personnel. You never know. So it's great to be nice to everybody and great to at least know the people that are decision makers and the people that are, you know, controlling, you know, who gets on the field, who gets on the roster, who has that decision making power. And JG and Monty have decision making power. Mr. Bidwell has decision making power. It's great to make sure that you have somewhat of a personal relationship with those folks. And again, I have that relationship at every organization that I've ever played at. Pittsburgh, Jacksonville, New York, and Arizona. And those relationships, you just never know where those relationships are and where things end up.
Coming up next on the Rise Up C-Red podcast, the best hour of Cardinals talk on the web. One final slot with Kelvin Beachum talking about 2 things. The young players on the offensive line and what he said about Kyler Murray on the radio. That's coming up next on Rise Up C-Red. 2 questions. One is about the young guys in the offensive line room. I had the opportunity to talk to Lecitus Smith a couple of weeks ago. There's some young guys, Josh Jones, Lecitus, Marquise Hayes, who we didn't hear from because he was on injured reserve. What did you see from the young guys last year? I guess Josh is almost not a young guy anymore because he's hitting year 4.
Yeah, I can't call him a rookie anymore. I can't make him do things anymore. So he's not a young guy anymore. But, man, Josh is coming into his own. I think he did a really good job playing left tackle for us, playing left tackle last year, stepping in when DJ got hurt, and being more consistent, which, you know, I think that was kind of the only thing that people wanted to see from Josh. He was physical. He played hard. He finished plays. And he got better throughout the year until he got hurt. I thought Leroy, that's what I call him, Leroy. Leroy came in and played really well for us against the Rams and kind of took a step back when we played, you know, San Fran. So it's like, to keep that momentum up, and how do you find a way to be a pro every single day? Finding ways to do. How can I be a pro every single day? How am I putting the work in every single day? How am I putting myself in the best position to be successful? As a young player, that's the focus. I just want to find a way to be successful, put my name in the hat, compete, and be able to compete for a starting job and a roster spot. And once I get that roster spot, how do I keep it? And once I get that starting job, how do I keep it? And that's the thing that I would encourage, and I have encouraged Lasitas to do. Is like, you had your shot. It ain't many 6 and 7 round picks to get a shot. Once you get that shot, you got to make sure you take it, keep it, and do really well with it because you don't know when you get another one.
Last one is about Kyler. Some comment that you know what you said. We know how it's going to come across on the internet when you say the quote, "What does Kyler need to do to take the next step? Grow up, be a man, grow up." That comes across really harsh. Was it intended as harsh as it was? Because one person can take it, oh, Kyler is immature, or two, Kyler still has maturing to do even though he's made progress.
Well, what's interesting is you just see that headline of grow up, but nobody actually gets like the actual piece in what I said. I said it's not a completed process.
Correct.
I didn't say he lacks leadership. I said he just needs to grow up a little bit. I think he has the ability and the willingness to grow up. And if he does that, he will be just fine. They paid for a reason. All I'm asking and all I want to see is him lead more in every capacity. That whole quote isn't talked about. Everyone's just like, all right, he needs to grow up. Beachum said he needs to grow up. I said he needed to mature last year.
You absolutely did off this season.
I did I not? I said he's maturing, and he is starting to mature. This year, I said he needs to grow up. Meaning, all I'm doing is using different language. He's maturing. He's getting better. He needs to grow up. The same thing that you would say to your child. Hey, you're 10. Hey, you can't do the things that you were doing when you were 5. Hey, you're 15. Hey, you can't do the things that you were doing when you were 10. Hey, you're 18. Grow up. Like,
absolutely, I completely agree with the notion. We've seen great things from Kyler. Obviously, I know one thing that he struggles with is losing. And I know that's something that as a teammate, everyone does.
Everybody does.
And he can obviously handle adversity better. And that's one thing that teammates would gravitate towards when they see him not down, but encouraging, which I've seen much more of him do in the last year than previous years. So I've seen growth. But no, he's not a finished product, and obviously he's 25 years old. How many players in the NFL are finished products at age 25? Or in life?
I'm not a finished product. I would say I'm not a finished product. And for me, that's what's mind-boggling about how it's been taken. It's like nobody's a finished product, but in society we've become so sensitive to everything. Like if somebody says grow up, that means you need to do a better job, or that person needs to do a better job. And the thing is, I would want somebody to tell me that.
Right.
Somebody told me that.
Kyler wants to win a Super Bowl. He hasn't done it yet. So obviously he still needs to improve. Everything that goes across like that. Hey, Beach, I'm so thankful for the opportunity to speak with you on about everything about this. We appreciate that you won the Pro Football Writers of America, our chapter here in Arizona, the Good Guy Award. I hate the name of it. There's a bunch of good guys in that locker room, but for the willingness to talk to guys like us, to talk about tough conversations and tough topics like this, and to do it with the candor with which you do it, we all appreciate it, whether it's the day-to-day beat writers. I do this on the side and in the locker room during games. And so, Kelvin, I greatly appreciate the time and the honesty with which you speak to everyone.
Yes, sir. Anytime. Thanks so much. I really appreciate it.
Then again, that's Kelvin Beachum. Go to worldvision.org/Beachum. Help him build that third clean water well as he takes his trip to Zambia. Kelvin, thank you for your time. Appreciate it so much. That wraps up this edition of the Rise Up Sea Red podcast. That's been Kelvin Beachum. Again, go to kelvinbeachum.com. Go to worldvision.org/Beachum. Donate to that cause as he heads out to Africa this weekend. This show we dropped earlier than we anticipated because of the time-sensitive nature of what Beachum's doing. This would have been episode 407, and then the draft combine, our combine show with Justin Higdon would have been 406. That will drop on Friday. So this on the show, I said episode 406 on the draft show, and this is 406. So don't mind that. It's all right. But I'm Jess Roop. This is the Rise Up Sea Red podcast. We'll be back again with the Combine episode in a few days and talking free agency with Seth Cox next week. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening to the latest edition of the Rise Up Sea Red podcast. Listen to previous episodes and subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, Audioboom, or many other podcast platforms so shows are delivered directly to your mobile device. Please give the show a 5-star rating and always support the sponsors who support the show. We'll be back soon for the best hour of Cardinals talk on the web. Rise up, Red Sea, be Red, See Red, and of course, Rise up, See Red.
Roll!